it is only death and destruction. The descent into madness has begun, and the once honor-bound Orcs, a pact in blood, is about to be made. Don't forget to like and subscribe and come, take a seat by a cauldron. The first attacks and raids that took place against the Draenei caught them off guard. They thought perhaps it was because of the elemental disturbance that was also taking place. They constructed new defences and decided to keep a close watch on the evolving situation, not knowing fully what was taking place. But what seemed like coincidental events soon began to show signs of coordination. Settlements and outposts were simultaneously attacked across the land. What had spurred this new aggression they did not know, until they saw it. The land itself was dying, being burnt and used up. This was the Fel. The Legion had at last come. As more and more demonic magic was weaved across the world, the more the elements were being consumed. The Draenei could do nothing to stop the tide. They were forced to retreat to their two key cities, the temple city of Karabor and Shatra. Valen and his people knew their only hope was to outlast this war before the Legion could mount an all-out invasion. In a stroke of luck, a strange confluence of events bought the Draenei precious time they so desperately needed. As the Horde began to march on Karabor, they amassed at the foot of a huge mountain in the region. This was a place of power for the elements, who would stand idle no longer. They pooled all their strength into the Fire Lord Cyruk. From atop the mountain, a devastating firestorm raged towards the Orcs. They were notably shaken, especially the former shaman who believed their embrace of the Fel had turned the very elements against them. But in that moment, the Horde was mere moments from shattering. Gul'dan had to put a stop to this right now. He gathered the Shadow Council and performed a dark and truly dangerous spell known as the Cipher of Damnation. As the Fel magic surged through the elements, the mountain roared and quaked. The land split open, and Fel-infused lava swelled and burst forth monstrously from every crevice. This severed any lasting connection the Orcs had to the elements, and in a stroke of genius, Gul'dan and his warlocks would use this source of power to infuse the Orcs. It was unbelievable. They were more powerful than ever before. Once more they turned their attention to the Draenei that had fortified themselves now within Karabor. The megalithic temple construct was holy ground. If they could break them at this siege, the war would all but be won. But the Orcs faced fierce resistance. Against all odds, the Draenei were holding their ground, aided by the benevolent Arakoa. Gul'dan and the Shadow Council decided to respond to this with more brutality. Going against the dire warnings of the Shadow Moon Orcs, they decided to draw upon the mighty power of the Dark Star, a void-turned Naru Kara. Once summoned, a pillar of pure void energy ripped through the skies and washed over Karabor. While Valen used the light to save those scant few he could, the damage was done. The once beautiful and tranquil temple was now cursed, a wash of blood and madness. This place had become a true seat of darkness, and was thus renamed the Black Temple. It was here that became the seat of power for the Shadow Council to operate from. Any Draenei who survived but did not escape were subjected to fates too horrific to mention. Within this terrible place, a demon of immeasurable power was first summoned forth. Mannoroth, a pit lord and second in command to Kil'jaeden himself, was particularly brutish demon. But now, here, he began to set the darkest of events in motion. He was bled several times, giving over vast quantities of his blood to the warlocks. Sometime later, at the peak of a mountain named the Throne of Gul'dan, the nearby Orcs were gathered, and one by one they would be made to swear a blood pact. They would trade their very souls for power. This blood pact was merely a curse, a binding to demonic strength beyond their understanding. What last vestige of the old Orcs died that day, and what was reborn were horrific, bloodthirsty, savage beasts. The blood curse would affect them for generations to come, even those who did not drink the blood directly. There was some resistance, however. The Frostwolf clan would refuse to drink. Their noble chieftain Gul'dan had received advance warning among a few other notable holdouts. But on the whole, the race would never really recover from this vile act. They were now the puppets of the Legion. There were few small blessings amidst the strife. The Orcs that had succumbed but survived the Red Pox were placed in quarantine in a village named Garadar within Nargrand. While their skin had changed to a reddish-brown hue, they did not succumb to the demonic taint. These survivors would later be known as Maghar, meaning the uncorrupted. Shattrath now was all that stood in the way of annihilation. The Draenei were not safe from even behind their walls. The warlocks of the Horde unleashed the Red Pox against them, a cruel way to wage an unprovoked war. As the sickness took hold, its defenders one by one would fall, until the call for retreat was sounded. Those that could still fight would clear a path for the survivors to flee north to Tel Rador. Not all were so lucky. Some, however, could not make it, and instead would flee to the giant mausoleum of Orcandun. Bolstered by the spirits of the dead, those who took refuge there managed to repel the Orcish horde, even beginning to beat them back. In response to this, the fel-addicted warlocks attempted to summon a powerful demon to aid them. Instead, they summoned a dangerous elemental from another plane of existence. This being was named Murmur, and its mere arrival caused untold devastation. It completely tore Orcandun apart. The blast reached so far that it cleared the surrounding forest too, leaving a blighted scar on the land. The warlocks were forced to bind Murmur within the crypt, in a desperate attempt to contain it. Meanwhile, in Tel Rador, the sickness showed no signs of abating among the Draenei. Many of the refugees had brought it with them, but worse than the sickness was the fear. It was this fear that caused them to take a terrible step and banish those infected to the swamplands of the Zanga Marsh. The severing of their connection to the light caused them to mutate and take a new, less robust form, while some succumbed even further to the red mist infection, mutating once more into a race that would come to be known as the Lost Ones, named as such for the fear that they also lost their minds, returning them to a primitive state. The Orcs' hunger for bloodshed and conquest could not be sated. With the Draenei destroyed, they turned their attention to the other races of the world, to the Arakoa and what remained of them, and to the ogres of Highmaul. Each bloody campaign saw more and more fel magic being used, as well as their further victories. The land itself was suffocating and dying. It was at this moment of pure victory that Sargeras ordered Gul'dan to cease all communication with Gul'dan or this demonic Orc horde. Without leadership, without purpose, the horde began to flounder. They also began to succumb to starvation. The native beasts had long been driven to the edge of extinction by the coming darkness. As more time passed, the more desperate the situation had become. That was until one day a human male appeared before Gul'dan. It was Medivh, who had long since taken to the arcane secrets of Karazhan, studying demonic lore and searching the greater cosmos with his power, looking for any and all ways to stop the Legion once and for all. Believing the Orcs abandoned by the Legion, and believing himself to be fully in control, Medivh bargained with Gul'dan. He showed him a vision of the now tomb of Sargeras on Azeroth, and what slumbered within. This was enough to entice Gul'dan, and almost immediately, the construction of a huge dark portal had begun. Soon they could leave their dying world and conquer a new one. But is anyone ever ready for war and the strife that it brings? The Orcs and the natives of Azeroth will soon be tested, like only the flames of war can do. Not for tens of thousands of years since the time of the ancients has Azeroth seen a war of this magnitude, a war that will change everything. But I'd like to thank you all for the support. Oh, and don't forget to come back anytime.